My family ditched me at a desert gas station 1,200 miles from home, then drove off laughing. I walked to a shelter, learned to weld, and got married without them. 7 years later, they showed up begging cash, so I handed them one check and shut the door. Hey Reddit, my family thought abandoning me in the desert would be a funny joke. Spoiler, I didn't laugh. I built a whole new life without them. But of course they came crawling back. Before we get there, let me start at the beginning. My name's Theo. I was 23 years old when my family decided to find out if I could survive being ditched in the middle of nowhere. We were driving through Nevada on our way to my cousin's wedding in Reno. 3 days trapped in a Tahoe with my father Warren, who'd spent my entire life making sure I knew exactly how much of a disappointment I was. My brother Caleb, who'd figured out early that siding with Warren was easier than having a spine. And my mother Rita, who'd perfected the art of watching everything happen while pretending she didn't speak English. The trip was Warren's idea. He ran an appliance repair business back home, one of those small-town operations that somehow stayed afloat through a combination of being the only option and Warren's willingness to undercut everyone. Business was good enough that he could afford to drag us all to Nevada for what he kept calling family bonding. What he meant was 3 days of him and Caleb taking turns crapping on me while Mom stared out the window. I'd been working for Warren since I dropped out of high school at 17 to help him full-time. He'd convinced me it was the smart move. Why waste time on education when you could learn a real trade? Appliance repair, HVAC installs, whatever brought in cash. He paid me $9 an hour under the table while charging customers $90 for my labor. I lived in their basement because my paychecks covered exactly nothing after Warren started charging me rent when I turned 18. $300 a month to sleep on a futon next to the water heater, in a room that flooded every time it rained hard, black mold, and the constant smell of heating oil. The first 2 days of the trip had been standard family dysfunction. Warren criticizing my driving when it was my turn behind the wheel. Caleb making jokes about me being single while he was engaged to some girl he'd met at a bar 3 months earlier. Rita occasionally defending me in that weak voice that changed nothing and somehow made it worse. They'd been making jokes about abandoning me since we left. Wonder if Theo could hitchhike home from here. Bet he'd cry if we left him at a rest stop. Each time they'd laugh. Each time I'd force a smile because showing any reaction would just make them push harder. That morning, we'd been on the road for 6 hours. Somewhere between Tonopah and Reno, middle of nowhere. Just highway, desert, and heat that made the air shimmer. The AC in the Tahoe was struggling. Warren had refused to get it serviced before the trip because it works fine. It didn't work fine. Warren pulled into this rundown gas station that looked like it had been abandoned in 1987. The kind of place with one pump that takes cash only and a building with windows so dirty you couldn't see inside. Sign said, gas food restroom in letters that had probably been white once. Pit stop. 10 minutes, Warren announced. I needed to stretch anyway. My back was killing me from being crammed in the third row. 6'1" and stuffed in a space designed for groceries. I got out, joints popping. The heat hit me. Had to be 110 degrees. I headed for the bathroom. Didn't take my phone because it was plugged into the car charger at 12%. Didn't take my wallet because I had exactly $43 in it. And what was I going to buy at a gas station in the middle of nowhere? My keys were in my pocket, though. Habit from years of Warren throwing away my stuff when it annoyed him. The bathroom was disgusting. Graffiti on every surface, toilet that hadn't been cleaned since the 90s. Sink with one temperature. Scalding. Took me maybe 8 minutes total. Washed my hands with that industrial pink soap that strips skin. Dried them on my jeans because the paper towel dispenser was empty. When I walked out, the parking spot was empty. I circled the building once. The only other vehicle was a semi on the far side, driver asleep. Our Tahoe was gone. I stood there waiting for them to pull back around. But 20 minutes passed. Then 30. The trucker woke up, stretched, drove off. Still no Tahoe. They actually did it. I'd been hearing variations of this threat my whole life. Maybe we should just leave you somewhere and see if you can make it. Bet you couldn't last a week on your own. Turns out they meant it. I stood there in the Nevada heat, wearing a Pantera shirt I'd owned since high school, jeans and work boots that were falling apart. No phone, no wallet. The old guy running the register let me use his phone. I could have called them. Could have begged Warren to come back. Instead, I called information. Got the number for a shelter in Reno. Told the guy who answered I needed help. He asked if I was in danger. I said I'd been ditched by my family and had no way to get anywhere. He told me to hang tight. They'd send someone. 2 hours later, I was in Reno. The shelter was this converted office building that smelled like industrial cleaner and defeat. But it had beds and the director, a guy named Vincent, who looked like he'd seen every version of human cruelty, said I could stay as long as I needed. That night, lying on a cot in a room with 7 other guys, I made a decision. I wasn't going back. Not to that basement, not to that job, not to those people. Week 1 was survival mode. The shelter had rules. Up by 6 a.m. mandatory. Chores assigned randomly. Sometimes kitchen duty, sometimes cleaning bathrooms, sometimes sorting donations. Job search wasn't optional. You had to prove you were trying or you were out. Lights out at 10 p.m. No exceptions. They'd literally flip the breakers. The other guys were a mix of recently homeless, recently sober, and recently released. We had a former accountant who'd gotten hooked on pain medication after back surgery, a guy named Jerome who'd been a contractor before his wife cleaned out their bank account and disappeared with their kids, Phil, who'd just done 7 years for armed robbery and was trying to figure out how to exist in a world where everything required an ID he didn't have and a background check he couldn't pass. Nobody asked too many questions, which I appreciated. Most guys kept to themselves. Some had mental health issues that made them talk to walls or pace all night. A few had court-ordered rehab as part of their shelter stay. We all existed in this weird temporary space, trying to figure out how to get out without falling further down. Vincent, the shelter coordinator, was this former Marine who'd seen some stuff he didn't talk about. He had a tattoo on his forearm that said Semper Fi, and another one that looked like coordinates and dates from deployment, built like he still did PT every morning. Had a way of looking at you that made it clear he could see through any nonsense you were trying to spin. He helped me start the process of getting replacement documents. Birth certificate from Vital Records cost $75 I didn't have. He fronted it without making a big deal about it. Said I could pay it back whenever. Vincent also helped me get a prepaid phone with my first paycheck. Cheap flip phone, $35 a month. I kept my old number active for the first week in case any legitimate calls came through. They didn't. Just family. Day 3, I found a fabrication shop called Ironclad Custom about 2 miles from the shelter. Walked there in 105-degree heat because bus fare was $2.50 I didn't have. Took me 40 minutes, showed up drenched in sweat. Owner was this older guy, Hector, built like a refrigerator with a beard that could have housed a family of birds. The shop was this metal building on the industrial side of town, surrounded by other fabrication shops, auto body places, and businesses that dealt in things that were probably legal. Place specialized in custom metalwork, railings, gates, vehicle modifications, decorative pieces. Had this showroom in front with examples of their work. Wrought iron gates with intricate patterns, custom car bumpers, artistic sculptures. The back was all business. Welding stations, metal cutting equipment, grinding stations, racks of raw materials. I asked if they needed help. He asked what I could do. I told him I'd been doing appliance repair, could handle tools, learned fast, wasn't afraid of hard work or getting dirty. He looked at me for 30 seconds, taking in the sweat, the desperation, the fact that I'd walked there in this heat, then said, "You ever weld?" "No, but I can learn." "You're hired. Minimum wage, cash daily until you prove you're not useless. Screw up my equipment, you're out. Steal, you're out. Show up messed up, you're out. 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Can you start tomorrow?" Just like that. No applications, no references, no background check, just a handshake and a chance. Found out later Hector had been homeless once, back in the 80s. Understood what it looked like when someone was trying to claw their way out of a hole. The work was brutal. My hands cracked and bled from industrial soap. I'd come home smelling like grease and burned metal. The spray hose at the cleaning station had enough pressure to strip paint. First day, I accidentally sprayed myself in the face with it, trying to figure out the controls. Hector just walked by, said you'll learn, and kept going. By week 2, he had me practice welding on scrap metal after hours. The first time I struck an arc, the bright light burned through my helmet. Spent the next day seeing spots. "You've got steady hands," Hector said one evening. "You're thinking too much. Let your body do it." I wasn't great at welding for months, but Hector was patient in a way I'd never experienced. He'd correct me without making me feel like an idiot. Revolutionary concept. I worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. Started at $8.50 an hour, cleared about $250 a week after taxes. My phone rang on day 9. Unknown number. I answered because I was an idiot. Rita's voice, high and panicked. Where was I? They'd looked everywhere. They came back to the gas station and I was gone. They'd been so worried. Had I been kidnapped? Was I hurt? I could hear Warren in the background. Tell him to stop being dramatic and get to Reno. Weddings in 2 days. I could hear Caleb laughing. Actually laughing. That distinct sound of someone finding genuine amusement in someone else's misery. Rita kept talking. Machine gun questions. It was just a prank. They'd only driven down the road to scare me. Came back after 20 minutes and I'd vanished. Why didn't I wait? Why didn't I call? Why was I making this so difficult? You wanted to know if I could make it, I said. So stop calling and find out. I hung up, blocked the number. When she called from a different number 10 minutes later, I blocked that too. They called 17 more times that day from various numbers. I blocked every single one. The next day, I went to a T-Mobile store and got a completely new number. $45 activation fee I could barely afford. Gave the new number to Vincent and Hector only. The messages piled up in my old voicemail before I ditched it completely. I listened once. Warren yelling that I was being childish. Rita crying about family. Caleb saying I was being overdramatic over a joke. Each one more desperate, then angry, then threatening. I deleted the account and moved on. Month 2, I moved out of the shelter. Found a room in a house with 4 other guys, all of them working random jobs. $200 a week for a room the size of a closet, shared bathroom, kitchen privileges. The house was in a rough part of town, where you heard sirens every night and people sold stuff out of their garages that definitely wasn't legal. Cops came by once looking for someone who'd lived there 6 months earlier. We all just shrugged, but it was a room with a door that locked. I bought a padlock at Home Depot for $12 and used it religiously. My room had a twin mattress on the floor, a lamp from Goodwill, and a milk crate nightstand. The walls were that textured stuff from the 70s that looks like someone threw cottage cheese at it and called it decor. Previous tenant had left holes in the wall from posters or something. I didn't bother patching them. Wasn't my house. Roommates were fine mostly. Didn't steal my food. Didn't bother me. Kept to themselves. One of them, Jordan, worked nights at a warehouse, and we'd sometimes cross paths at 6 a.m. when I was leaving, and he was coming home. He taught me which buses went where, which stores had the best deals, which neighborhoods to avoid after dark, which pawn shops would give you fair value if you needed to sell something quick. Street knowledge you don't get from Google. Work was getting better. Hector moved me to actual fabrication after 3 months when he saw I wasn't going to quit or screw up his equipment. Started teaching me TIG welding, which requires actual skill. Takes a steady hand and coordination. You're feeding wire with one hand, controlling the torch with the other, working a foot pedal for heat control. I practiced obsessively. Would stay late after work, practicing on scrap until my arms ached. Spent my breaks watching YouTube videos on welding technique. Hector noticed. You're getting better, he said one day, inspecting a practice weld I'd done. This is almost passable. Maybe in another year, you'll be decent. Coming from Hector, that was basically a standing ovation. He bumped me to 12 an hour. I was clearing about $380 a week after taxes. After rent, food, bus fare, and the phone bill, I had maybe $50 left over. I saved 40 of it every week in a sock under my mattress because I didn't trust banks. I tracked Warren online through burner Facebook accounts I'd create and delete. The appliance business was doing fine. Caleb had taken over most of the service calls. Warren posted constantly about building something to pass down. Rita shared Bible verses and pictures of sunsets. Neither of them mentioned having 2 sons anymore. Check their profiles and you'd think they had 1 kid. All the old photos with me in them were gone. Family vacations, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, all deleted or cropped. After 6 months, I bought a beater truck. $2,000 for a 97 Ranger with 190,000 miles and more rust than paint. But it ran. No more buses, no more waiting in the heat. Hector taught me how to do basic vehicle repairs in the shop after hours. How to change oil, replace brake pads, fix minor electrical issues. Tools are tools, he said, watching me fumble with a wrench. Metal is metal. Same principles, different application. You can fix anything if you understand how it works. I started taking community college classes at night. Welding certification program. The classes were at a technical school across town. This blocky concrete building that looked like it was built in the Cold War. Classes were in a massive shop with 20 welding stations and an instructor named Gary who'd worked on pipelines for 30 years and had the scars to prove it. I'd work 8 to 5, grab food, drive to class from 6 to 9, get home around 10, pass out, repeat. Weekends I worked at Ironclad whenever Hector had big orders. The grind was insane. I lost weight I didn't have to lose. Lived on gas station burritos and energy drinks. Slept maybe 5 hours a night, but I was building something. A skill set. A certification. Proof that I wasn't the worthless person Warren had spent 23 years telling me I was. 1 year in, I got my welding certification. Hector gave me a raise to 15 an hour and made me lead fabricator. We had 3 other guys working there by then, and I was training them. Me, the guy who couldn't make rent a year ago, was teaching other people how to weld. That's when I met Paige. She came into the shop asking about custom exhaust work for her motorcycle. Hector was out, so I handled it. She had this way of talking where she didn't waste words. Told me exactly what she wanted, why she wanted it, and what her budget was. I gave her a quote. She said, "Make it happen." The exhaust work took 2 weeks. Custom bends. Specific sound profile she wanted. I welded every joint myself, ground everything smooth, polished it until it looked factory. When she came to pick up her bike, she walked around it twice, checking every angle. Then she looked at me and said, "This is perfect. You want to grab food?" I was covered in metal dust and smelled like burning metal, but I said yes. We went to this hole-in-the-wall Thai place she knew. She was in nursing school, working night shifts at the hospital to pay for it. Had exactly 0 patience for anyone's nonsense, which I found refreshing after a lifetime of walking on eggshells around Warren. She asked what I did for fun. I told her I worked, mostly. She said that was sad and dragged me to a climbing gym the next weekend. I was terrible at it. She found that hilarious. We started hanging out more. She'd stop by the shop after her shifts, bring me coffee, watch me work. Hector liked her immediately. Said anyone who rode a bike and could bench press me was okay in his book. We were dating within a month, living together within 6. 3 years after being ditched in Nevada, I had built something resembling a real life. Paige finished nursing school and got hired at a major hospital. I was making 22 an hour at Ironclad and doing side jobs on weekends. We moved into a decent 1-bedroom apartment. Hector had started trusting me with the business side. I handled quotes, ordered materials, managed schedules. He was in his 60s and slowing down. One day he called me into his office and laid out a proposal. He wanted to sell me the business. Gradual buyout over 5 years. He'd stay on part-time, help with major projects, but I'd run the day-to-day. His price was fair. $120,000 over 5 years. Structured payments based on business income. I didn't have that kind of money. I had about $8,000 in my sock money and another 3 in checking. But Hector said we'd work it out. He'd seen me work for 3 years. I said yes. We structured it so I paid him $2,000 a month plus a percentage of profits. The first year was brutal. Every penny went back into the business or to Hector. Paige and I lived on ramen and her nursing income. But the business grew. Word got around that we did quality work fast. We added 2 more welders. By the 2nd year of payments, we were profitable enough that I could actually pay myself a salary. By year 3, I'd paid Hector $40,000 of the $120,000. We were ahead of schedule. Warren's appliance business failed around this time. I found out through my fake Facebook accounts. He'd been trying to compete with the big box stores and losing. Posted increasingly bitter rants. Then suddenly, closing sale announcements. Then nothing. Radio silence for 6 months. Then Rita's account started posting. Vague stuff about trials and faith. Warren had health problems. They'd had to move. Things were tight. Caleb's social media was a graveyard of deleted posts and employment changes. Saw him working at an auto parts store. Then nothing. I felt nothing watching them spiral. Paige knew the basics of my story. I told her about being abandoned, about cutting contact. She never pushed for details, never suggested I reconnect. 5 years after being ditched, we got married. Small ceremony at a park. Hector was my best man. Paige's family adopted me immediately. Her dad Rico taught me how to smoke brisket. Her mom Linda force-fed me Cuban food. By year 6, we bought a house. Nothing fancy, but it had a garage and a yard. The business was doing well enough that I'd paid Hector off early, finished the buyout ahead of schedule. Paige got pregnant that fall. We were excited, terrified, all of it. I upgraded the Beater Ranger to a newer truck. Things were stable. Our daughter Maya was born that winter. Healthy, loud, perfect. Then my grandmother died. I found out through Facebook. Rita posted this massive tribute. Grandma Joyce had been the only decent person in that family. Used to slip me cash when Warren wasn't looking. I thought about going to the funeral, but I'd be walking into a room full of people who decided I didn't exist. Paige said she'd come if I wanted, but I could see she hoped I wouldn't. She had a newborn and didn't need that stress. I sent flowers instead, had them delivered to the funeral home. Signed the card. From Theo. The response was immediate. Friend requests from accounts I didn't recognize. Messages from numbers I'd never seen. Is this really you? Where have you been? I ignored all of it. Changed my privacy settings. Locked down everything. That night I had a panic attack for the first time in years. The thought of them finding me, showing up at the shop. Paige found me in the garage at 2 a.m., sitting on the concrete trying to breathe. She didn't ask questions, just sat with me until I could breathe again. Then she said, "They can't touch what you've built unless you let them." 7 years after being ditched, life was solid. The shop was doing well, fully mine now. Paige was working 3 12-hour shifts a week so she could be home with Maya more. We'd moved into a bigger house. Maya had just turned 1, was walking and starting to babble. I'd stopped checking Warren's social media as obsessively, maybe once every few months. Last I'd seen, they'd moved into a trailer park. Warren was working at a hardware store. Not owning one, working at one. Caleb was bouncing between jobs. Rita posted prayer requests and GoFundMe links. They were drowning slowly, and I was building something that would last. Then someone posted a photo of my work on a welding forum. One of our clients had shared pictures of a custom gate we'd done. Beautiful piece. Scroll work, hammered details. Took me 3 weeks. They posted it on a national metalworking forum asking who'd made it. Someone tagged Ironclad Custom. The thread got picked up, shared around. Someone must have screenshotted it and sent it to Rita on Facebook, because 3 days later, Warren walked into my shop. I was in the middle of welding a staircase railing when Marcus, one of the guys, came back and said there was a family asking for me. I pulled off my helmet, headed to the office. Warren looked like he'd aged 20 years. Hair completely gray, gut hanging over his belt. Rita had that drawn look of someone who'd had hard years. And Caleb. Caleb looked exactly like Warren at 40. Same sneer. There was a young woman with them, Caleb's wife. Nobody spoke immediately. The shop noise filled the silence. Warren broke first. "Theo, you look good." I nodded. "Didn't offer anything." "Can we talk somewhere private?" Rita asked. I led them to the conference room. Told Marcus we weren't to be disturbed. They sat. I stayed standing. Warren started with the reconciliation speech. How they'd made mistakes. How family is important. How they'd been trying to find me for years. I let him talk. Watch their faces. Warren doing his routine. Rita crying on cue. Caleb shifting in his seat. The wife, Bailey, just looked confused. When Warren ran out of steam, I asked the only question that mattered. Why now? Why not year 1? Year 3? Year 5? The silence was beautiful. Rita tried first. "We didn't know where you were. You changed your number. I sent flowers to Grandma Joyce's funeral. Had my name on them. So why now?" Took another minute before Warren laid it out. He had medical bills, heart problems, no insurance, $15,000 in debt. Rita needed dental work that would run another $8,000. Their trailer was getting foreclosed because they were 4 months behind. Caleb's wife was pregnant, and they were living in Warren and Rita's trailer. They weren't there for reconciliation. They were there because they'd run out of options. "How much?" I asked. Warren perked up. "We were thinking maybe 25,000 would get us back on." "No." Warren's face went red. "You're going to let your own father lose everything? After I raised you? Gave you a job?" I laughed. "You paid me $9 an hour under the table and charged me rent to sleep in your basement." Caleb stood up, getting aggressive. "You smug piece of—" "Sit down." Marcus appeared in the doorway. 6'3", 240 pounds. Just stood there. Caleb sat. I told them I'd think about it. Told them to come to my house for dinner that evening. Gave them the address. They left thinking they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. I called Paige immediately. Told her what happened. She asked if I wanted her to take Maya to her sisters. I said no. I wanted them there. Wanted Warren to see exactly what I'd built. Spent the afternoon working through my plan. This wasn't going to be dramatic. This was going to be surgical. Paige made dinner. Nothing fancy. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, rice. Maya, who was 1 year old and just learning to walk, toddled around the kitchen while we cooked. Paige kept her occupied with plastic containers and wooden spoons. They showed up at 6 p.m. Warren kept calling Paige Patricia. Rita couldn't stop staring at Maya. Caleb and Bailey made effort at small talk, but Caleb kept dropping hints about family helping family. Dinner was awkward. Warren kept eyeing the house, mentally calculating value. Rita would tear up randomly when looking at Maya. Maya picked up on the weird energy and got fussy. Paige took her to the living room. After dinner, Paige took Maya upstairs for her bath and bedtime. I sat in my chair while they arranged themselves on the couch. Warren started his pitch again. The health problems. The financial stress. How family helps family. How he'd always believed in me. I let him finish. Then I asked him if he remembered my 18th birthday. He looked confused. I reminded him. We'd been in the shop. I'd told him I wanted to go to trade school for welding. He'd laughed. Told me I'd never amount to anything more than a helper, Because I didn't have the brain or work ethic for skilled trades. Warren squirmed. I don't remember saying that. I do. I remember every word. I asked Rita if she remembered the time Warren threw my acceptance letter to community college in the trash. She'd been standing right there. Done nothing. Her face confirmed she remembered. I asked Caleb if he remembered telling my ex-girlfriend I was probably gay when she came looking for me. Caleb went pale. Bailey looked at him. The room was silent except for the sound of Maya fussing upstairs. Then I went to my office. Came back with an envelope, handed it to Warren. He opened it. Inside was a check for $150. Warren stared at it. What is this? That's what a bus ticket from Reno to our hometown costs. The exact amount it would have taken to get home from where you abandoned me. I'm giving you the same chance you gave me. Figure it out. Warren exploded, started yelling about disrespect and betrayal. Rita was crying. Caleb was on his feet. I stayed seated, calm, waited for them to burn out. You done? I asked. You're going to regret this, Caleb said. I stood up, walked to the front door, opened it. Get out of my house. They left. Warren crumpled the check and threw it at my feet. Rita was sobbing. Caleb was muttering threats. Bailey just looked embarrassed. I closed the door, locked it, set the alarm, watched through the window as they stood in the driveway arguing, Warren gesturing wildly. Rita collapsed against the car, Caleb pointing back at my house. They drove away, but I knew it wasn't over. 3 months later, my life went sideways. Started small. Negative reviews showing up on our business page from fake accounts. 1-star ratings with vague complaints. I'd report them, they'd get taken down, new ones would appear. Then, someone filed a false complaint with OSHA about safety violations. Took us 2 weeks and a full inspection to clear it. Cost us time and a project deadline. A week later, someone called our biggest client and told them I'd been in prison for fraud. Complete fabrication, but the client pulled their contract while they investigated. Cost us $30,000 in revenue. Paige started getting hang-up calls at work. The hospital security had to get involved when someone showed up asking for her by name. I hired a lawyer. She started documenting everything. Screenshots of fake reviews with timestamps, call logs, platform reports showing the accounts were created from the same IP range, phone records. She said we had enough for criminal harassment charges if we wanted to file. Someone filed a false report with CPS claiming neglect. That one sent Paige into a spiral because they actually showed up at our house, asked to see Maya, interviewed us both. It was cleared in a day, but the damage was done. Paige was terrified they'd come back. My lawyer sent a cease and desist letter to their last known address. It bounced back. They'd moved. I was done playing defense. I tracked them down through Facebook posts and public records. They were living in a motel in Sparks, the weekly rate kind where people go when they've run out of options. The kind with doors that open to the parking lot and neighbors who mind their business, because everyone's got something to hide. Rita had posted a prayer request about temporary housing and someone had tagged the location. I showed up on a Saturday morning, drove my newer truck, parked right in front of their room, knocked on their door at 9 a.m. Warren answered. Looked worse than 3 months ago, hadn't shaved in days, wearing sweatpants and a stained shirt, hair greasy, eyes bloodshot. The room behind him was a disaster. Fast food bags everywhere, clothes piled up. Bailey was sitting on one of the beds, looking miserable and heavily pregnant. Caleb's voice came from the bathroom, yelling at someone on the phone. What do you want? Warren asked. To finish this. I didn't wait for an invitation. Walked past him into the room. The TV was on. Some morning news show nobody was watching. Empty bottles on the nightstand. Caleb emerged from the bathroom. Looked me up and down. I'd filled out since they'd last seen me. 7 years of welding and fabrication work had put real muscle on my frame. He saw it. Rita was sitting on the other bed. Hair mostly gray now, no makeup. She looked up at me, then did something I didn't expect. She stood up, walked over to Warren, and slapped him across the face. The room went silent. This is your fault, she said. All of it. You couldn't leave him alone. And now look at us. Warren's face went from shock to rage, but Rita didn't flinch. For the first time in my life, I saw her stand up to him. She turned to me. I'm sorry. Not just for this. For everything. For never stopping him. For being too weak. Her voice cracked. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it. Then she sat back down. It didn't change anything, but it made her human. You've been harassing my family for 3 months, I said to Warren. Calling my wife's job. Filing false reports. Trying to destroy my business. That ends today. Warren puffed up. I don't know what you're talking about. My lawyer has everything documented. Screenshots, call logs, platform reports. We have enough for criminal harassment charges. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop. All of it. Because if you don't, we file the paperwork and you're explaining to a judge why you've been stalking my family. You can't prove anything, Caleb said. Already did. My lawyer's been building the case for 2 months. One more incident, and we file. Warren's face went red. You ungrateful little... I'm grateful for exactly one thing. You showed me what kind of man I never wanted to be. Rita started crying. We're your family. You were my family. Past tense. You stopped being my family the second you drove away from that gas station. I pulled out an envelope, placed it on the dresser. That's $2,000. Cash. It's more than you gave me and more than I should give you. Take it. Get out of Nevada. Go back home. Start over. Whatever. But if I see you, hear from you, or find out you've contacted anyone in my life again, we file everything and you're done. No second chances. No warnings. Warren stared at the envelope. Why? Rita asked. Why give us anything? Because I'm not you. I'm not going to leave you stranded with nothing, but I'm also not going to let you destroy what I've built. Take the money and disappear. Caleb moved toward me. I didn't flinch. Stared him down until he backed off. We're done here, I said. Take the money or don't. But if I ever hear from any of you again, the next conversation happens in court. I left, walked to my truck, sat there for a minute, hands shaking. Hands. The motel room door never opened. Drove home. Paige was in the kitchen with Maya, making pancakes. Saturday morning routine. Maya was in her high chair, smearing banana everywhere. Paige looked at me. It's done, I said. And it was. The harassment stopped immediately. All the fake accounts went dark. No more calls. The reviews stopped. OSHA didn't hear from any mysterious complainants. CPS never came back. My lawyer told me later she'd gotten a call from a number in Nevada, asking what it would take to make this go away. She'd told them, complete silence, leave the state, never contact us again. The documentation we had was enough to press charges, and they knew it. Rita's slap had created a fracture in their united front. She was done with Warren's schemes. They took the money and left. 2 weeks later, I checked their Facebook accounts. Deleted. All of them. I never found out where they went. Never saw them again. Never heard from them again. Months passed. Maya started talking. Paige got promoted. The shop landed a major casino contract. Life moved forward. Sometimes late at night, I'd think about that motel room. About Warren's face when he realized I'd actually showed up. About Rita slapping him. About the envelope on the dresser. Truth is, I felt nothing. They'd become strangers. The real revenge wasn't the confrontation or the money. It was every morning I woke up in a house I owned. Every hug from my daughter. Every dinner with my wife. Every single ordinary day of a life I'd built from nothing. They'd wanted to see if I could make it on my own. Turned out I could. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.